So we're in a 3-week arc right now, anchored in the season of spiritual awakening, the first of 5 seasons in the stewardship journey. Last week we talked about naming the exhaustion. We put language to something a lot of women have been feeling, but they felt like they couldn't say it out loud. This week I want to go somewhere a little more uncomfortable because I've noticed something. Women will name their spiritual exhaustion, they'll agree that something feels off, and then they'll shut it down and stay exactly where they are. And I think part of the reason is that we haven't gotten honest about what staying there really is actually costing us. So that's what today is, an honest conversation, not to make you feel guilty, but to help you to see clearly. So welcome back to another episode of the Steward Well Life podcast. I'm your host, Telanna, and if you're just joining us for the first time, this podcast is about biblical stewardship of your whole life, not just money. It's your time, your identity, your calling, and your capacity, because stewardship is a lifestyle. So I want to start with something that I think goes unsaid in a lot of Christian faith spaces. Spiritual disconnection is not a neutral place to live. Like, we treat it like it's a pause button, like we can just coast for a season and pick it back up when we're ready. And that's why we go years and years without following and fulfilling God's plans and purposes for our life, right? But it doesn't work that way. Every season you spend disconnected from God is a season you are making decisions, building habits, forming beliefs, and doing life without your most important source of wisdom, direction, and peace. And that has a cost, and that's what we need to talk about. So I want to share something personal with you, and it's actually connected to a milestone I have coming up. My business turns 10 years old this year. And when I think about how I got here, I have to be honest about a season where I almost walked away from everything God was preparing me for because I was operating at a distance from Him. I have been working at this company since 1999, all business, family owned, in healthcare reimbursement. Not glamorous, but it was exactly what I wanted. I had chosen a small company intentionally because I knew that as a wife and as a mother, I needed flexibility. And that was the most important thing to me. I needed to be present for my family in a way that I actually knew that I was not going to be able to get in a corporate setting because I went there from a corporate setting. So I made peace with being in that space. But by 2011, I was done. Okay. I was frustrated. I was exhausted. I had given over a decade to this place and I was ready to leave. So I started interviewing and I found a position open at a major insurance company that I genuinely wanted because I had always worked on the reimbursement provider side. And I thought this was such a perfect opportunity for me. And I thought that an open door was my answer. But then guess what, y'all? That door closed. They decided not to fill the position. And listen, your girl was devastated, okay? Which is probably an understatement. And here is what I want you to hear. I didn't take any of that to God. I was just reading my Bible. I was still going through the motions of faith, still going to church, but I was so overwhelmed by my frustration that I couldn't find my way to actually seeking God. So I just kept on sending out resumes, kept leaning on my own understanding and trying to figure it out myself, right? And then we found out that the owner had stage 4 cancer. And before I knew it, he had passed away towards the end of 2012, the last quarter of 2012. And in that grief, in that uncertainty about what the future of the business even looked like, I finally stopped running and started returning to God. Not because I had it all together, not because all of a sudden I was happy, fulfilled, but it was because I was desperate enough to admit that I didn't have a clue. I didn't know what the future held. And I refused to be ridden with worry and anxiety. And it was in that season of returning, of getting back into deep, intentional, intimate time with God that He began to speak. And He told me to be still, to stop looking, to trust that He had not brought me this far to abandon me or the people around me. Listen, I had no idea at the time that by 2016, the owner's wife would decide to sell the business. I had no idea that staying when everything in me wanted to leave was actually God positioning me for ownership. From the outside, leaving would have made complete sense. There was change, there was uncertainty, and there was grief. And I don't like none of that, right? And looking back on this, I actually thought that would have probably been a perfectly reasonable moment to say, God must be releasing me. But he wasn't releasing me. He was preparing me. And what I know now that I wish I had understood then, if I had let my feelings override my desire to get close to God again and to trust him, if I had let my frustrations have the final word, I wouldn't be sitting here 10 years into owning this business. The team that feels like family to me might not still be together. The legacy of that company may have ended. That is what staying spiritually disconnected would have cost me. Almost everything God had already been building on my behalf before I could even see it. James 4:8 says, draw near to God and he will draw to you. I am a living witness that he honors that. But you have to turn back to him first. And you have to trust the season that he is asking you to steward. I want to name 3 specific things that I believe disconnection costs every high capacity, purpose-driven woman. And I'm not picking these randomly. These are 3 things that I hear women aching for the most. The first is clarity. We've all been there. When you're not in close communication with God, you navigate life on your best thinking. And your best thinking, as capable as you are, is finite. Your best thinking doesn't have access to the full picture. Proverbs 3:5-6 is one of the most quoted scriptures in Christian circles. And I think we quote it without letting it actually land. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on all your understanding. That is not a suggestion. It is an instruction. Proverbs 3, if you go through it, most of it is a command and a blessing, because the cost of ignoring what God is asking you and commanding you to do, those instructions, is a life full of decisions made from incomplete information. And you end up running in circles. The second is peace. Not the peace you manufacture by getting your circumstances in order, right? I'm talking about the deep, settled, doesn't make sense peace that Philippians 4 describes. That peace has one source. It's not a mindset. It's not a practice. It is a person. And if you've been trying to find peace by managing your life better, and it keeps escaping you, maybe it's worth asking yourself whether you've been looking for that peace in the right place. Because the Bible says that God will give you the peace that surpasses all understanding. And so what did we just talk about in Proverbs 3? To trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Because the understanding of your peace comes from the spiritual connection to God. The third thing is alignment with God's purpose and plans for your life. Now, I know that this one hits differently for purpose-driven, high-capacity women, because so many of us are carrying a deep sense that we are called to something far greater than we could even imagine. We feel it. We know it. We understand that there is an assignment on our lives, but calling without connection just ends up being restlessness. It's those nights where you're trying to go to sleep and you're crying because you sense that God wants to do something, but you haven't connected to him on a deep enough level to figure that out. You cannot fully walk into what God has for you if you cannot hear him telling you what it is, what season you're in, and what he's asking of you right now. And disconnection makes you busy but not fruitful, busy for everything else, everybody else's desires, being all things to everybody, instead of being in a place where that you can hear and receive from God. So here's the question I want to ask you now, because I think this is important, right? If the cost is real, clarity, peace, alignment with God's purpose and plans for your life, why do we stay in disconnection? Why do so many women name the problem and then not move? And I think there are a few reasons, right? One is shame, because we feel like we've been going too long, done too much, drifted too far, and coming back feels complicated or undeserved. But we talked about that last week when we talked about the prodigal son and how the father didn't wait for the son to clean up himself. He ran to him when he saw that he wanted to come back. Because I need you to understand that God's posture towards you is not condemnation, even though you may think it is, even though you may think you messed up so badly. The second thing is familiarity. You get so accustomed to the disconnection that it becomes your normal. And then you start to build a life that functions without God being in the picture. So changing it feels unnecessary, even when we understand that it is costing us something. And honestly, some of us don't know how to come back, right? We don't know what that first step is. We don't know what it looks like because we've been away too long and it all feels so unfamiliar to us because we feel closer to the world than we do to God. And then the last one is exactly why I created Wake Up, a sacred morning rhythm. It's a free resource inside of the Steward Wildlife community that walks you through rebuilding that daily connection step by step, without pressure, without perfectionism. If you don't know where to start, that is where you start. And I'm going to leave the show notes for you. But start by inviting God back into your morning. Start by inviting God back into your day. Even if that just means I'm going to read one proverb a morning, or I'm going to read one psalm a morning, or maybe you can't even read the whole chapter, just a verse. Start somewhere. But before I let you go, I want to say this. You were not created to live at a distance from God and call it fine. He is your creator, and you were created for intimacy with him. And that intimacy produces everything that you've been searching for. The clarity, the peace, the sense that your life is actually going somewhere that matters and that the things that you're doing in your life matters. The season of spiritual awakening is so uncomfortable because it's honest, but it's also the beginning of everything that comes next. So don't rush past it. Don't numb it out. Let God say what he's been trying to say, what he's been trying to tell you, what he has been trying to show you. He's not far. You just need to turn back. And when you do turn back, he will be there running to you. So grab the resource. And if you're not going to grab the resource, do one of the other things that I suggested. But take the next step. Until next time, shine bright, walk boldly in purpose, and steward well the life that God has entrusted to you.